Hey, welcome back to the Brownie Points podcast. I'm your host, Noam, and I'm here with my co-host,
Levi.
Excellent job as always. We're going to get us started with a recap, just discussing obviously what happened between the Browns and the Steelers game. Then we'll get into our analysis and as well as specifically how Dillon Gabriel did and what our grades were on his performance. Then we're going to talk about Kevin Stefanski. Is he on the hot seat? Should he be on the hot seat? We're going to have a Brownie Points segment where we award Brownie Points to the standout players on offense and defense. There's a bit of a twist to that this week, you'll see. Then we're going to do our preview segment, previewing the Browns versus the Dolphins game coming up. That should be an interesting one and a good opportunity to see what the Browns are really capable of against a team that's probably closer to their level. But let's start with the recap. The Steelers got a field goal on the first drive, and after that, there's a lot of stalling. The second quarter, Steelers added 2 more field goals until the Browns rallied on the last drive to score a field goal of their own, make it 9-3, so a close game, similar to what we had expected from this. But in the third quarter, the Steelers scored touchdowns on the first 2 drives, but the Browns got field goals. And that was a really big story in this game, I think. When you'd see the Steelers come out and score a touchdown, the Browns get a field goal. The Steelers go get a touchdown, the Browns get a field goal. You obviously can't win football games like that in the NFL. At that point, it was 23-9 in the fourth quarter, and that was pretty much it. It held for the rest of the game. Kind of disappointing. We predicted a win, which now we look like fools. After we had, I think, 3 straight, we predicted the Browns to lose. We were right about that. Finally, we come out, we're like, I think they're going to win this one. And they make us look like idiots. But that's our fault for picking the Browns and for believing in them. Not to get too pessimistic, but, that's kind of been our life. What was your impression of that game? What really went wrong over the course of that game?
Well, I mean, several things went wrong. First of all, the big surprise for me was the run defense, right? The run defense was poor. Jalen Warren put up 4.7 yards a carry.
That was sad to see.
And that surprised us. The big thing is we thought, okay, well, they're going to stuff the run game. They're going to get back on track, stuff the run game, and force Rodgers to throw a lot. When he's picked his spots, he's been pretty good this year. He still has a big arm. He still has the accuracy for the occasional big throw.
Yeah.
But when he's been forced to throw a lot, he's thrown picks. So we thought, okay, great. You're going to force him to throw a lot, and that's when you'll take advantage, and, that will give us our chance. But then they just jammed it up the middle on us. So then they get to pick their spots, and they're choosing, and they're dictating. Well, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And when Rodgers, again, gets to pick his spots, he's still been pretty good. So that's not ideal. That was the biggest surprise, but I was also really disappointed because I thought Stefanski was really starting to get better with his adjustments. But when you looked at that game plan, it felt like 2021 Stefanski all over again, right? Remember 2021 where our tackles were getting beat up all the time?
Yeah.
We had major tackle trouble, and he just wouldn't adjust. The one that always sticks in my memory, and this is going to be a little random, but in 2021, week 6, we go play the Cardinals. Okay, this one really sticks in my memory because the Cardinals were 5-0 coming into that game. I don't know if you remember, but they used to start off really hot, and then they would get terrible late. Anyway, J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones were their defensive end with us, okay? And J.J. Watt, whenever he was healthy, was still good because he's J.J. Watt. And Chandler Jones, if you remember when he was good, he was very good, legit, and he was still, in his prime or near his prime anyway.
He was good still.
And both of our starting tackles were out. And our backup swing tackle we got at the beginning of the year was out for the whole season. So we were dealing with third stringers. One of them I remember was James Hudson in his rookie year. James Hudson never got good. So you can imagine his rookie year was not good.
Oh, God, you just reminded me about him.
Yeah. Nick Chubb was out. Behind him, we had our hard-running, and I'm blanking on his name, Kareem Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And Kareem Hunt was injured, but he was going to play, but on a limited snap count. Behind him, we had Jackson, if you remember, who went off against the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't play him. He wouldn't play him in this game. Stefanski was like, I'm going to wait till I'm forced. Anyway, early in the game, Hunt gets injured out. And he's like, you know what? I'm not going to use Jackson at all. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go empty backfield. And he basically played empty backfield the rest of the game. So you've got a hobbled quarterback because Baker was injured, with 2 third-string tackles against 2 monster defensive ends. And his answer was, let's just go empty backfield a bunch.
Yeah.
And what happened? He got sacked and beat up a bunch and got injured even more. He got a broken humerus bone. Point is, he just didn't really adapt a lot. And he did that a lot. And then what you see in this game is you got the Steelers. And you got Steelers who've got good defensive ends. And then very early you see this Herbig guy just beating up in the left tackle position. And you've already got Watt on the other side. So you know that's not going to end well.
Yeah. And Cameron Hayward.
Right. And Cam Hayward up the middle. But you trust your interior to maybe hold up a little. But with everything else falling apart. How is your game plan including that, hey, when we want to go past, let's do long developing routes? It was like, okay, I understand wanting to take a shot downfield, but everybody knows when you're in that situation, you have to buy your opportunities. You have to get your run game going. You have to buy the play action. You use play action, throw them off. You get some screens going. You get them running side to side. And when they're not ready for it, you get the play action. You do maybe a rollout, buy some time, and try a shot downfield. But you got to buy that opportunity because in a regular situation, they've got you beat talent to talent. And your guy, you cannot rely on him getting 4 seconds to sit there.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he did it anyway, and he got sacked and got beat up. And then you got a bunch of penalties, and that's on the coach too. So you got a bunch of penalties, you got sacks eating up drives, and there didn't seem to be a game plan on how to deal with that. It didn't seem to be a game plan coming in of an expectation of the pass rush owning the game if you were going to sit back there. And it's like, why weren't you expecting that? As a head coach, by now, with the team that by now has been dealt with offensive injuries that tackle a lot.
Yeah.
How do you not have a game plan ready for this yet? That was so disappointing.
Yeah, I agree that his coaching performance was not very good, and I actually felt like it was okay for most of the year. I didn't really feel like there was much there. I felt like they were doing fine with what they had. I didn't really expect much more out of it, and I felt like the game plans made sense for the tools and the quarterbacks that they had. But in this game, and also the last one too, I will say, it didn't really feel much like that. It felt like, there was a lot of empty backfield plays. I think the first play of the game was an empty backfield. Which was bizarre. Obviously, they dropped back like 58 times, I think it was.
52 to be exact?
It was in the 50s.
It was up in the upper 50s.
It was in the 50s. It was way too much. And I know they got behind, but they didn't get behind by that much that they couldn't run it.
Not until late.
Not so much that they couldn't run it.
9-3 at half.
At all. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you have to run it sometimes, even just ceremoniously, just to make sure the defense is staying honest. So, like, yes, let's say your running game's only going to get 2 yards. You still have to do that every once in a while to make sure the defense is honest, to allow you to do all of those pass plays that you want to do. On a positive note, it did feel like that, Kevin Stefanski was showing a little bit more trust in Dillon Gabriel, but I think that the receivers, both with drop balls going between their fingers, ball bouncing off their heads, and also barely ever getting any separation, I think all of that together meant that it was really not the time to try and, pass all around. They don't have the weapons to do that. I think Kevin Stefanski saw, like, all right, he was our guy. They like Dillon Gabriel. They knew that, right? They were waiting to play him. Last week against the Vikings, maybe a bit short, as far as planning goes. It's a very difficult defense. They thought coming up against the Steelers, not the best defense. I think they liked Dillon Gabriel, and I think they just really wanted to let loose and really hand the reins over and let Dillon Gabriel be the best version of Dillon Gabriel he could be. But I don't think that they game planned around the fact that our receivers are terrible.
And our offensive line was going to hold up.
And our offensive line didn't hold up. Yeah. He got sacked way too many times. And many of those sacks were not his fault. Like, sometimes they're your fault, as a quarterback, you're holding on to it too long. But Dillon Gabriel's criticism is sometimes he gets rid of the ball too fast, honestly. Sometimes, like, maybe you could let the play develop another second or so. But he generally did very well holding in the pocket, maintaining his position. Because he's so short, he kind of gets lost in there sometimes. It's kind of interesting. Like, the pocket collapses and you just kind of lose him. The ball goes, whee! The ball flies out of there. But I didn't love the game plan from Kevin Stefanski. And for me, like, when the Browns get that stop and the Steelers go to kick it back to the Browns, and then they knock over the kicker, and the Steelers get the ball back, and that was the moment I was like, okay.
So many mistakes.
This is it. This is Hugh Jackson again. And
Stefanski, okay, his maybe biggest weakness, and this is not just weakness for him, it's really, really smart guys in the NFL. And I know this is going to drive people crazy to go to the Buccaneers right now, but real quick, part of the reason they're doing somewhat better this year than last year, not that they had a bad year last year, but in some of their clutch moments, they didn't quite work out last year, even though Baker was clutch, is because Liam Cohen is also a super smart play caller, play designer. And sometimes these guys are actually detriment to themselves because they try to big brain it. It's like when you got a guy who's a stud, like, develop around that, right? And sometimes he would just try to, like, in the playoff game, he tried to do like an end around to a rookie who actually made a few mistakes all year long, and he made a mistake and fumbled it. Anyway, point is, sometimes don't get too big for your britches. And Stefanski sometimes has this issue too. He just thinks he's going to come up with this brilliant, he's going to figure it out. And he was running Quinshon Judkins to the edge way too much. Quinshon Judkins is an up-the-middle runner who's also proven, number one, to go against tough defenses. And number two, he's proven that he likes to get going. And he typically punishes you later in the game, which means you need to give him more runs up the middle. The other thing is it allows you, if you pound him up the middle, to hit you on the outside edge with Samson. The other thing it allows you to do is not go empty backfield and instead use the up the middle run to set up a play action rollout to buy yourself a shot downfield. And it was like completely disconnected. Like you just thought Judkins was going on the outside. Now that was just going to fool them. Not to mention, what's weak on your offensive line? Your tackles, your strength, your interior.
Yeah.
Like I understand, it's just he tried to big brain it, but it's like there's only so much you can do that. At the end of the day, if you're just not good enough, you're just not good enough.
Yeah. I think also, like, ultimately, I think from this game, while so many things were disappointing, the whole game, it's a little bit, I think, I don't want to say unfair, but it's a little bit, I think, of, like, not professional analysis, I guess, to say this, but you could almost break down that whole game to two plays, where the Browns knock over the kicker, because the Steelers went back and scored a touchdown. The Browns lost by 14 points, 2 touchdowns. The Steelers went back and scored a touchdown on that play, so they don't knock over the kicker, no touchdown. Dillon Gabriel throws a touchdown pass, a would-be touchdown pass that bounced off the receiver's helmet. If the guy caught that, it was a touchdown.
Which is egregious.
Yeah, he was right there. He wasn't even looking, right?
Well, that's
the receiver wasn't even looking, right?
The problem with Bond is he doesn't always do what he's
His
supposed
head
to do.
isn't always great. Yeah, it's a very athletic player.
He's very talented.
But that would have been a touchdown. That's another 7 points. That's a 14-point swing between those two plays. And I say it's not like the most professional analysis because, truthfully, just because the Steelers didn't score a touchdown on that drive, hypothetically, they probably would have scored a touchdown on the next one or on a different drive. Maybe. It's a little bit superfluous. I'm trying to think of the right word.
Momentum matters. Your defense being tired matters.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But it's not unfair to say that game might have just come down to those two plays right there. You just swap those two things, and we could be having a very different conversation. Not a conversation, I think, about the Browns winning. I think that is a little unfair. I think they would have lost anyways, even without those two plays. But it could have been more like a 2 or 3 point loss. You know what I mean? Not 2 or 3, but you know what I mean? Like more like a field goal loss rather than a 23-9, which looks terrible. And look, watching it wasn't great either, right? You could tell that the Steelers, throughout that whole game, the Steelers controlled it. The score was close, but it felt like it was bigger, honestly, than it was, in my opinion.
Had opportunities for
because the Steelers were controlling the game.
Like, you were controlling, but it was close enough that you could have.
Yeah, and the Browns were not able to stop the run. The Steelers running backs lowered their heads and just trucked them every single play. And they were getting like 5-6 yards pretty much every time, and then every once in a while break it out for 9-10. And that was all it took. That was pretty much it because...
Yeah.
You know, our defense was the one thing that we had going for us. And then Aaron Rodgers, I think, saved the Steelers on a couple drives. And when I say saved, I don't mean like in a fluky way. I mean, he's a veteran.
He made some pinpoint throws.
Yeah, he made some like really timely, like great plays. You know what I mean? It's almost like picked his 3 or 4 moments to be old prime Aaron Rodgers again. But that is what these guys do sometimes.
That's their game plan. That's what the Steelers want to do. They don't want him throwing 40 times a game. And when you don't stop the run, he'll get to pick his spots.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, just a side note, but with the Browns offense, can we try something different? Like, okay, things aren't working out. Let's get Jamari Thrash more involved. Jamari Thrash at least can catch the ball. And number 2, he played a lot in practices with Gabriel because he was on the second team. So Gabriel, you can tell when they do play, they have a really good connection. In the preseason, you saw that connection. And each of the times you threw to him in the first 2 games, they connected on nice plays. Maybe get him more involved.
Yeah.
I know Bond's really athletic and everything, but he just keeps giving up and doing stupid things. Maybe try to get Thrash involved because remember Hollywood Higgins? He sucked. But he got some big plays. Why? Because chemistry. Sometimes it helps just to have a guy with some chemistry who has good hands and will catch the ball.
Yeah.
So give it a try because I'll tell you what you're doing now isn't working. So maybe having a guy who can move the chains and catch balls on third down when they're thrown to him could be extremely helpful. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to try different guys when everyone else is failing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, discussing the receivers, I think that the receivers was a big reason why Dillon Gabriel looked the way he did in that game. I want to touch on...
He certainly played a role.
Yeah, I want to touch on his grade and what we felt on that.
Yeah.
For me, I want to preface this by saying, because I'm about to do a little Dillon Gabriel apology rant, and I do want to preface, I give Dillon Gabriel a C grade on that game. I don't think he was particularly special. I don't think it was particularly bad. I don't think he did anything to drag the team down, but I don't think he did anything to really lift the team up either. I thought he was just fine. I thought it was a C. I thought it was a very just middle of the road. That being said, for a lot of the people that are detracting Dillon Gabriel and trying to dog on him and trying to say, like, okay, that's it for him, he's trash, let's get Shador in there, like, you need to slow down a little bit. First of all, it's only a second game. That's A. I think if Shador played 2 games, for the Shador fans, right? If Shador had played 2 games, you'd be saying, hey, you need to give him more time than just 2 games to completely decide a player's career.
And the same Browns fans yelling on Twitter about not being patient with Baker, but we're giving this guy 2 games?
Right, exactly. It just, because that's the point, is because we're prisoners of the moment, and that's human nature, especially as sports fans and as Browns fans as well, right? We're always prisoners of the moment, recency bias and all that. But Dillon Gabriel, I thought was a C game, but the thing that I thought people aren't talking about, for all the people that were upset about his performance, that didn't feel like he played that well, that want to see Shador go in there, I didn't hear anybody talking about the fact that there were 3 drop balls. Some of those were on third down, right? 3 dropped balls. 2 of those drop balls, I believe, were
deep red zone.
Were 20-yard gains.
Yeah.
Right? So we're talking about 40 yards or so missed from those drops. Separate from those drops, 2 plays that I counted, the ball went right through the receiver's hands. And a couple of those balls, or at least one of them, I can't remember exactly those 2, but I remember one of them where they're like, oh, it was almost picked. I was like, yeah, it went right through the receiver's hands.
Yeah.
So that's another 2 plays. So we're up to what? 5 plays that are on the receiver. That the receiver, look, drop balls happen. Balls go through receiver's hands sometimes, but not 5 in one game. Plus the ball that bounced off Isaiah Bond's head that should have been a touchdown, right? So you're talking about 5 more completions for a minimum of like 50 or so or more yards, plus another touchdown that Dillon Gabriel, arguably, right, should have had.
And that Fannin drop,
if you're being
taking him by the 10.
Yeah, if you're being in it, and there's also drive killers when you drop the ball, right? So you don't know what have happened on those other plays too, right? You get that second down throw even, right? That's a completion. Now you have a 3rd and short instead of having a 3rd and long. These things make a huge difference and they add up. And when you have an offense that's not great like the Browns, when you have a quarterback that's like playing at a C level like Dillon Gabriel is, you can't afford to have your receivers pulling you down even further. It's bad enough that we have the offensive linemen taking turns getting holding penalties on crucial plays. We can't have receivers dropping balls too. It's just not overcomable by this offense. And to me, that's something that needs to be talked about more. Our receivers are garbage. They are horrifically bad, and they're not getting separation. And when he is fitting the ball to them, they're dropping it. I don't know how they can improve on that, but that's a discussion for another time. Overall, I felt like Dillon Gabriel was a C. I didn't see a ton of special plays, but I did really like how he stayed in the pocket, made plays from the pocket. I didn't get the feeling that he was overwhelmed, which is also important. He did still feel like he had a grip on the offense. At no point did he look lost out there, which is not uncommon for rookies. Even for rookies that turn out to be good, sometimes they do look a little lost. I did not get that feeling that he was lost. And those are the qualities that I think were great about him. I think, hopefully we could have seen a little more. But I do feel a lot of that is on the receivers for not getting space and for not catching the ball when he fits it in there, even on a great play. What was your impression of him?
I mean, I was going to give a C- because there were a couple plays.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
There were a couple plays where I thought he lacked a little bit of awareness. Like he was like, I'm going to go through my checklist and do what I need to do, but missed a defender. So I'm giving him a slight minus, but honestly, a lot of it feels like he should get an I for incomplete because honestly, it's super hard to grade him right now. Because also, like at the same time, okay, that play wasn't great, but if you keep getting your big plays dropped, right? Like first of all, some guys are rhythm passers, so like it's hard when those big plays get ruined by penalties that took him back. First half, a lot of penalties, and then also drops between those two. You got drive killers, you got momentum killers. You're not getting into a rhythm, and like it's kind of hard to grade you when it's like. Normally we sit there and go 25-yard pass, but we don't put the same grade on a drop 25-yard pass, so it's like
right.
It's a little harder.
Like from an evaluator's perspective, his stats were actually more like 280 and a touchdown and no picks.
And like what if Fannin caught that right and put him right near the 10, and then Judkins gets a 6-yard run and they run it in, or Judkins breaks one, whatever, or they just pass one in. I don't know. They're near the 10. They're much closer. They get a touchdown. And Isaiah Bond catches that.
Different game.
Big difference in points. A whole different game. I'm not saying it's what happens, but it could be. Like, we don't know what happened. Point being, nothing guaranteed, but when you take away the big plays, sometimes you're not sure what you're getting. And yeah, a lot of times they're asking him to sit back there and the offensive line is getting beat. There's not a lot you could do. I'm not in love with the guy, but guys, it's been 2 games. And number 2, the biggest criticism was Shedeur is that he sits in the pocket. He's terrible pocket management.
Yeah, exactly. It would be way worse.
His reads are super late. His reads are late. He's not fast enough to deal with this. Like, to be like a Lamar where it's like, okay, well, his reads are late, or Josh Allen, but like, he's so athletic. Like, no, he's not. Like, if he comes out there, he's getting decimated.
Yeah, I don't know what about Shedeur Sanders' play makes people think that he would do well in this current situation. And I'm not even saying like, that he's going to be terrible in general, but he's a developmental guy for a reason. He went in the 5th round for a reason. His pocket management in the preseason was terrible. How good do you think it's going to be in the regular season?
Yeah, and people are like, oh, well, what if he played with first teamers? I'm like, guys, everyone who's good who played with the lower teams always played excellent. You always see it. They always play better. If they're playing badly in that level, they never play better later. That doesn't mean he can't develop, but at current, he's not ready for it. He's not. And you saw those defensive ends getting in there, so it's not like the protection's better. It would be so bad, and they're trying to help Shedeur. They're not trying to hurt him. They're trying to help him. He's not ready. And so you don't stick a quarterback who's that lost out there because it kills their confidence, and it just ruins everything.
And it's funny because
but let's go another week before we start giving up on a guy.
I agree. And it's funny because some people are like, oh, they're sabotaging Shedeur but not playing him. And then you have other people that are like, if you play him, that would be sabotage. It's just very funny, I think.
And the same people be like, oh, they did it right when they sat him for a year, like some other guy. And it's like, guys, you need a coherent idea and philosophy about the way you approach the sport. It can't be, you know what I mean? Like, yes, you have some differences based on situation, but your situation would have to be something different than what we have out there right now.
Yeah.
And every indication we've had so far is that Shedeur is not ready to come out yet. And Dillon, like, he's older. He's gonna come out. He's gonna do what he's gonna do.
Yeah, and it's not like he's looked amazing, but like he doesn't look lost. He doesn't look like a disaster. Like Shedeur, every time he got the ball, he was dropping 8 steps back in the pocket and just letting the defenders tackle him. He was ruining play after play after play. Dillon's not ruining plays. He's just not, elevating necessarily either. But regardless, we'll get more into that as we see him. It'll be interesting to see him next week. We'll discuss that in a preview segment and how we think he'll do against the Dolphins. But for now, I think you always... Well, actually, we're going to talk about Kevin Stefanski first. Is Kevin Stefanski on the hot seat? Should he be on the hot seat? I was listening to the radio today. They were talking about this. And I don't remember what they were saying because I try not to really listen to other people's opinions. I try to make sure I have my own developed opinion before I listen to what other people think.
Yeah.
But to me, Kevin Stefanski is not on the hot seat, but he's on the radar for that. Which coming into the year, I did not think that. And this is I'm trying to cast my memory back, and I'm afraid that I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to go back and remember that this was not true. But from what I can remember, I've never said that Kevin Stefanski was on the hot seat, or that Kevin Stefanski deserved to be on the hot seat. But this is the first time that I'm like, he's on the radar. I will begin to think about it if they lose next week against the Dolphins. I will begin to actually seriously think about whether he should be on the hot seat. At the end of the day, though, for me, I think there's no point unless you have somebody you can replace him with, which is how I felt. I remember, I think a year ago when we were discussing this, and people were saying, should he be fired, blah, blah, blah.
I think if you don't have
someone to replace him with, there's no point. He's a 2-time coach of the year. I'm not saying that means he has to be awesome right now, right? Obviously, what have you done for me lately is a very common theme in sports. But he has 2 Coach of the Year awards. What that means to me is that he is capable, and we know that for a fact. It is almost definitely true that if you fired Kevin Stefanski, we'd have someone coming in who would have no idea if their ceiling is even a playoff run. We wouldn't even know if that's their ceiling. For Stefanski, at least we know that a playoff run is in his ceiling. We know that's within his capacity. Whoever replaces Kevin Stefanski if, right? We won't know that. It could get worse. Obviously it doesn't get much worse than 1-4, the 4 wins they had last year, but at least we know that it could be better. We know that's within his powers, so to speak. We wouldn't know that with the replacement. And so for that reason, I would hold on to him unless somebody special came along that you wanted to replace him with. Because most likely you're just taking another shot in the dark that could get a lot worse.
So, my opinion is I think the seat's a little warm. Whether it gets hot or not depends on how he performs. Now that he has his quarterback there, not that it fixes all ills, but when they then play a defense that you should do well against, how do they do then? So we're coming up on a couple games where we're going to get into it, but there's a stretch of games now, for a good long stretch, where a good chunk of the defenses are not that scary anymore. And
that's true for the Steelers, but the Steelers are coached by Mike Tomlin, and it is a little different.
They were starting to pick back up. The last couple of games, so the first couple of games, they didn't look that great on defense, but the last couple of games, they were looking pretty good on defense, so we just weren't 100% sure. Mm-hmm. So they might be just be getting their bite back. Sometimes they start a little slow.
Yeah.
Nothing in the world. So I don't want to rule them out. They might actually be a very good defense. They've been historically, so it wouldn't make sense that they just started slow. And that happens to teams in the first 2-3 weeks.
But the Dolphins
are somebody. But it's more than just Dolphins. They're going to play a lot of teams on the stretch here that aren't nearly as good. And then it comes down to, okay, well, if they continue to look terrible, then that seat gets real hot.
Then you have no excuses anymore.
If they continue to look like this in the offense consistently, then he'll get fired 100%.
Yeah. Do you believe in the idea that a coach can be good but get stale?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not sure that's Stefanski's problem, though. But absolutely. First of all, you saw a little bit with Sean McVay. He's pretty good, but took him a minute. He went through this lull where the league figured out what he was doing. He did something really revolutionary. They figured out, and he had figure out how to be a coach again a little bit. Not that he was bad, but the offense fell behind for a while.
I remember. Yeah, they had a little bit of a dip from their highs. Yeah,
and so you see that sometimes. So and some guys just they're not the same anymore. I think Sean Payton a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, he's not terrible offensively anymore, but he's not, like, once upon a time, he was really
a bit of a savant, yeah.
And now you're kind of seeing that, like, yeah, but a lot of his stuff people have figured out, people have done. And it's not that crazy anymore. Defensive coaches happens all the time. Guys become Todd Bowles for the longest time. He's starting to reinvent himself this year and starting to actually get aggressive again and rediscovering a little bit about what he used to do. But like he's gone through a couple of stretches where he's been running bottom two secondaries for the last couple of years.
But you don't think that's Kevin Stefanski's issue here?
I don't think that's quite his issue yet. I don't think he's doing anything that crazy. I think he should have looked for a better play caller. Because sometimes he struggles with that. And
there was that talk about whether he should give up play calling duties.
He's just not going to do it. It is what it is. The one time he picked it was like the worst decision. He didn't pick a coordinator who should be picking for that. But yeah, basically what it comes down to, though, if he's going to be hot or not, is that Andrew Berry might be hot. Like, we kind of like these rookies this year, but he's had a lot of bad drafts, and a lot of his approach to the offensive line has been terrible.
And the receivers.
And a lot of the free agents just like, yeah, it's like there's a lot of it's like weird. It's like, okay, Isaiah Bond's your big shot. Like you couldn't get like a normal, just like 500-yard receiver veteran guy just to like help fill out the receiving corps so they're not throwing to guys who just make constant mistakes. When you also know how injury prone Cedric Tillman is, like why not get that guy? Why not bring back Elijah Moore? Like, he doesn't cost that much. He's at least solid. We've seen him. You know, he'll make his catches.
Yeah.
Why not bring him back?
I'd rather have him than Larvidan. No offense to Larvidan. But,
right. I'm not saying there aren't better moves, but, like, why not bring back a low-cost option who's at least solid? I'm just giving an example. But just like a guy who's, like, he'll catch the ball.
I don't think Andrew Berry, like, yes, the draft class might be decent, but I don't think he's done a good job of setting up the roster for success this year.
Right. And so, like, you do get into question marks about that. Question marks about him. I think he hasn't done a great job with staffing. In terms of, I think he needed someone high up behind him who actually has a different approach than the same, so that you can get some of that pushback. I think that's good for you, and I don't think they've done that. It's been my way or the highway, and so sometimes it works, and sometimes you see it's a little bit too much lean on one direction, and it's ended badly. Stefanski, like I said, he's had his ups and downs. I think I think he is a little not so great at locker room control, and so sometimes you'll see that be a problem. I think Myles Garrett should be. I think maybe they need to move him. I think he's lost a little oomph. I don't think he's bad. I just think he's feeling a little like, if I do everything, like, what are we doing? We're not winning.
I do get the feeling that he's like
he's defeated.
I don't. Yeah, that he's morally down. I
just think at the end of the year that could be a danger for you, because if he starts creating a ruckus again because he feels like he needs out.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's been playing terribly or anything like that, but.
It's not a matter of talent.
Yeah, I just feel. Yeah, I agree. I think that actually, as a defense overall, we have to be concerned about that.
And look, you already gave up Newsome. You already gave up on this year. The reality is, if you wait till the end of the year, Myles Garrett gets really unhappy, starts creating a ruckus, it becomes a two-time thing. The value drops a little because people start worrying about.
Plus, he's a year older.
Yeah, he's a year older. I don't want to, but I'm just saying, like, realistically, you're not ready to go right now anyway. Maybe you should look at these things. It is what it is. And because Stefanski, if you're going to keep him, he's not great at controlling these kinds of things.
Yeah, that's the one thing going.
But I have to tell you, if you're talking about replacement, there are replacements.
Who would you replace him with?
Well, I think there's a couple options. I think there's going to be a couple options.
Okay, who do you think is going to be available?
Right off the bat, Todd Monken is super interesting, of the Ravens, offensive coordinator. You know, he's been a really good offensive coordinator for a really long time. And hasn't really got a lot of opportunity because of 2019 when he let Freddie Kitchens. I don't know why he signed on and not call the plays and let Freddie do that. But he did really great at Georgia. Their offense has not been the same since he left. Mm-hmm. They're not bad, but he took them over the top and then they went back down. He helped Lamar progress a remarkable amount as a passer. Like, Lamar could do stuff before, but his passing from the pocket went up remarkable, like, since he took over. Big jumps. I think he's actually really talented. Dayball might become available. Maybe not, though. They're starting to get some wins.
Probably not now.
But Mike McDaniel might be from the Dolphins.
Do you want him, though? I mean, look what's happened with the Dolphins.
He's still a great offensive mind. Just Tua's terrible. And people have kind of figured out how to approach it, and he just doesn't have the physical tools to do a whole lot else. And that team is just falling apart. But I've seen this happen to guys before.
Well, hang on a second. Well, just to push back for a second there. So you're saying Mike McDaniel maybe, because he's had some success in previous years. This year's not going well, but his quarterback's not that great. Isn't that kind of Kevin Stefanski situation where he's had success in previous years, but this year the talent's just not there, right? Like, not much of a quarterback, not much of an offensive line, no receiving game. Defense is, there's talent there.
I don't disagree, but I've also seen him. First of all, I think he's found a way to make Tua successful for a long time, which I think speaks to.
Like, you hit him for a while.
He hit him for a long time.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I think number two, I just think he's a lot better play caller. Like, his actual play calling is, like, really up. And he's a genius level. Like, I think he's just, like, different level. Stefanski, people mistook him for genius when he was copying genius. It wasn't his ideas. Like, don't get me wrong, not that he never had his own ideas.
Yeah, he's a smart guy, but yeah.
But it was modeled on other people's offenses. It was modeled on Shanahan. Again, I'm not knocking it, but I'm saying Mike McDaniel does his own thing. And honestly, you've still seen that offense put up a good fight.
Yeah.
Tua's playing terrible, and they're still scoring a lot of points in these last couple games, finding ways to be competitive.
And it's not that you were saying specifically he's better than Stefanski
defense.
either. You were just saying he would be an option, though. But yeah,
But I think he would be better than Stefanski. I think he's a better coach.
Well, that's something we will be discussing in a few weeks. If the Browns keep losing, who would be replacing him at head coach if they were to fire him. Or
maybe he should bring in Bobby Slowick to be the offensive coordinator. Bobby Slowick being the coordinator for Stroud in his rookie year. And year 2, he got blamed. But as it turns out, Stroud has got real struggles. Mm-hmm. He's got real issues. It wasn't Slowick's fault, but he actually made him look good for a year. So, I thought he did some really good things. Maybe bring him in and let him be a play caller. Maybe that's your option.
The play calling thing is kind of interesting, but whether or not Kevin Stefanski is on the hot seat, I think we both agree not yet. But it sounds like he's getting close to there. He's on his way. He's on the walk towards
another coordinator,
the hot seat.
Clint Kubiak, for the Seahawks.
That would be interesting, actually. Yeah,
if you remember, he was a coordinator for the Saints the year before, and you're like, okay, their offense wasn't great. Yeah, but when Carr was in and he was healthy at the beginning of the year, they looked dominant. Then he lost him, and Rattler's rookie year wasn't exactly great.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler's.
And they missed their top 2 receivers, and it was like, what was he going to do?
Yeah.
But now he's with the Seahawks, and he's got them playing really well.
Yeah. Who do you think would be?
I'm just saying, he might be interesting too. So, I think there are options. Don't get too convinced that there aren't options out there.
Who do you think would be more likely to go if they were going to fire one of them, Andrew Berry or Stefanski? Because to me,
question. I think it's Stefanski though.
I think it's Andrew Berry. I think Stefanski, at the end of the
I would
day,
agree if it wasn't for this rookie class.
If they went in there and they start looking at him, coming into the year, we thought, okay, defense looks strong. We knew the offense had problems. We knew that the offense didn't have much at quarterback. We knew that they didn't have a receiver room. I wouldn't have expected much from the offense, and that's kind of what we're getting. So I feel like that's kind of living up to it. But who set him up for that? Andrew Berry. And then I think
I don't disagree, but I think the rookie class could save.
But I think on top of that though is Kevin Stefanski can at least say hey, I have 2 Coach of the Year runs, and one of those Coach of the Year runs, 2023 with Joe Flacco and everything. That run, they were not super loaded everywhere, all over the place. That was him overachieving, right? So he's overachieved before versus Andrew Berry. I haven't really gotten that impression. That's something again.
But they probably go out as a package.
That's my guess.
Probably.
Especially because they are pretty well in sync, which that's one thing to their credit. They've always been at least given the impression to everyone else that they're on the same page, which is nice, and we don't really see a ton of infighting from them. All right, we're gonna move on from there. We're gonna talk about our brownie points for this week. Again, if you're a first-time listener, the brownie points segment is where we reward brownie points to the stand-up players on offense and to the stand-up players on defense. The more brownie points you get, the better we thought you did. We give out 3, 2, and 1. And I hope you remember that because we are not giving out any brownie points this week. And so that is the end of the segment. Moving on.
I think you're going to figure out why.
Yeah. Dolphins, Browns, there's nothing to talk about. Dolphins, Browns preview. This one's going to be really interesting. Coming into that Steelers game, we both predicted a win. Now, again, we looked like idiots after that, but we predicted the win. Coming into this week against the Dolphins is a different story. Because to the Steelers, we thought they would rise up a little bit. We thought that they were going to improve. They didn't. Or not enough, at least. Against the Dolphins, it's a different story. Because now that we're talking about 2 teams that are, I don't want to say underachieving, because none of them had that much necessarily going on. But 2 teams that are not performing well. 2 teams that look bad. 2 teams that are around on the same level. And so if you go against the Dolphins and you get embarrassed by the Dolphins, now I think we have a very different conversation about everybody. About Andrew Berry. I think about Kevin Stefanski, Dillon Gabriel. The 3 people that typically get blamed the most. I think it becomes a very different conversation if you lose to the Dolphins. Now, even I, who've generally been a pretty big defender of Kevin Stefanski for his entire tenure with the Browns, even I will start to say, hey, maybe, despite what he's done in the past, despite his previous successes, I do believe that a coach can get stale. And maybe it's just time for us to move on. And I could see him even going on and being successful somewhere else. But I don't know that it's going to happen here.
Sometimes you have to learn the lessons.
Yeah.
It does happen.
If they lose to the Dolphins. What are your expectations for this game?
Actually, I know I said it last week, but I do think they're going to win. I'm not super confident. I will say the Dolphins have been putting up a lot of fight in the last couple games.
Yeah.
They have been finding ways to score points, but they are a little more finesse in the running game. So even though the last couple weeks have not been great in the run game, looking at Mason Graham a little bit, like, hey, buddy, we drafted you real high. We'd like you to show up again. But at the end of the day, I got to think they do have some athleticism on defense. I gotta think they can game plan around a little bit, and Tua can't throw the ball deep. Like, you can guard the underneath. You can pick off those routes. Like,
the question is, are they going to do that?
I don't know.
Jim Schwartz isn't exactly
Schwartz
he's not the adjustment king, but yes, he does like getting aggressive.
Right, I'm saying, but it plays into what he likes to do.
Right.
If it wasn't for that, I agree with you. But since I think it plays into what he likes to do, you might see that. And also, the biggest thing is, I think the offense will play pretty well because they have a terrible run defense. Judkins should be able to get a little movement going.
Yeah,
and then I think
and Judkins opens up
the play action.
Judkins opens up everything.
They have a bad defense, so I think there'll be openings for guys like Fannin, etc. And I think if the offense does get going and get a few touchdowns,
so you're getting me to start changing my opinion now. I knew what I was going to predict before, but now you're getting me to think.
Defense gets a kick, like, oh, they're going to do something this game. You might actually see them play pretty good. I would not at all be surprised if the Dolphins won. They're probably a little bit better, even though they're not better, but like the way they've been playing. But I think they might get something up. But one thing I will say is I actually think Dillon Gabriel's got a lot better deep ball than people think, particularly in the chunk play segment. His 25, 30-yarders. You've noticed I've seen him twice, like, go out on the run and throw a dime. Like, threw a dime.
Yeah, one of those that was dropped.
And Fannon's, he was on the run and threw it like 25 yards downfield, and it was beautiful.
Fannon's had a couple drops, too, by the way, which is really frustrating.
Weird, because he did not in college.
Yeah, so you just hope that that's a fluke, but hopefully Jerry Jeudy's not rubbing off on people.
It might be as he's trying to learn being a rookie that his concentration is the same because he's feeling more pressure on understanding different elements. And so a lot of times
his mind could be in other places.
So that could be what it is.
Yeah.
But point being, I think there is something there. So if he actually gets time, I think you'll actually see that convert a few times.
Yeah.
So
for me,
maybe I'm just being eternally optimistic, but I actually think they're going to get the win. I think they're going to put it up, and it's going to be like 24 to. See,
for me, it's flipped. I came into this segment, to this episode, thinking 24-17 Browns are going to lose this game. I think there's a clear path to success, and I think that path to success is Quinshon Judkins. Because when Quinshon Judkins comes in, I mean, he can basically be an offense all on his own. He can be a touchdown drive all on his own, and we've seen him do that before. And then, he could punch it at the end, or Dillon could punch it at the end, or whatever, right? Quinshon Judkins can be an offensive drive and a scorer completely on his own. And then on top of that, obviously that makes it a little easier on the offensive line because the defense has to be a little more honest. It opens up the short game, the long game. It opens up everything in the passing game if Quinshon Judkins can get going. And that was one of the biggest problems against the Steelers. It wasn't so much that Dillon Gabriel was, messing up every play, but a lot of it was just they were passing too much. It was too predictable. It was too easy for the Steelers to cover all of their bases. And the Browns don't have receivers that are smart enough to get around zone defenses or athletic and route running gods that they could just, cross them up or whatever, right? Carve them up. Sorry, not cross them up. Carve them up. That wasn't going to happen. And so to me, that's the path, right? If Quinshon Judkins goes for over 100 yards, I think the Browns win this game. But I think if Quinshon Judkins is under 100 yards, I think the Browns lose 24-17. I do think Mike McDaniel, especially with the way the defense has been slipping, I think Mike McDaniel will scheme his way towards some more scores. I think the Browns they're going to give them one. They're going to gift them a score. Maybe a field goal, maybe it'll be a touchdown, but I think they're going to gift them something one way or another. And I think the Browns are going to lose this game, unfortunately, 24-17. And this does, by the way, mark the first week of the season that we disagree.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Yeah. And with that, we're going to end that episode. We will see you next week. Yeah, hopefully I'm right.